welcome to the AVForums podcast for the 6th of August, and joining me for this edition are Assistant Editor Steve Withers.
The power of Christ compels you.
News Editor Mark Hodgkinson.
One death is the parent of 1,000 lives.
Games Editor Mark Botwright.
Captain Howdy said no.
And Audio Reviewer Ed Selly.
Oh, of course he never went bowling with Goebbels before either, I suppose. Nazi bastard.
And welcome back to the podcast. We're all rested, chilled after our summer holidays, and we're ready to get cracking. First of all, with a look back to some of the interesting things that the lads have had a look at while I've been away on holiday. And then we're going to have a look at what's coming up in August. So let's get started and let's have a look at some of the TVs that we have tested recently, and Steve's going to tell us all about it.
I just reviewed last week, I think it was, the Sony X9005B. I wish to God they come up with some different names for their models, because it gets very confusing when they keep calling them the same thing each year and just putting a suffix in. This is the new wedge-shaped Sony Ultra HD 4K TV, as opposed to the X9005 that was last year's model with the big speakers on either side.
Yeah.
This has got big speakers as well, but it's got a wedge shape just to differentiate slightly.
I've got to say, I liked the wedge shape. This was the one that split opinion.
It's very Marmite. It's very Marmite. Either you're going to love it or you're going to hate it. I don't think there's going to be much middle ground.
I like the wedge, but I don't like the speakers. Just a bit awkward.
Have you got the 85 in right now, Mark?
Yeah, that's not wedge.
Is that wedge?
Non-wedge.
Not wedge. Oh, it's non-wedge.
It's fairly thick, but it's not wedgy.
Yeah, you see, the thing is, I don't mind the wedge so much. Although the 65-inch model I had him for review weighed an effing ton. I mean, it nearly killed me putting it up. It wasn't so much the wedge.
You went for a lie down, didn't you, after handling that?
I had to, yeah. I was exhausted.
Yeah. Just thought I'd slip that one.
It took like an hour to set it up because it was just had to do it in small increments. You just couldn't move it. The wedge shape I didn't mind so much. I mean, it's beautifully made. It's very, very well engineered. Typical Sony, really. The build quality is superb. It looks gorgeous. The finish is fantastic. It's got the feet that you can either have at the ends or in the middle to produce the size of the footprint, which is quite a clever idea. It's just, I'm just thinking anyone buying a 65-inch Ultra HD 4K TV, and spending 3,300 quid, which I got to say I think is also a very reasonable price. Are they going to be using the speakers much? Or are they just going to use it with an AVR or a soundbar or some other kind of outboard audio solution? So you're kind of paying for something that people aren't necessarily going to use, and it's all it's doing is making the damn thing even wider. But I had to move everything off the surface I usually use to put TVs on. I normally have stuff at the ends, like Blu-ray players. I had to move it all across and out of the way because it was so wide. So I can see that being a bit of an issue for some people.
But do you think that we are making the assumption that people buying this are going to have an outboard sound solution? Well,
I'm okay. It is an assumption on my part, but if you're spending $3,500 on a telly, you're more likely to also sort out.
But the argument would be, if you're spending $3,500 on a telly, you want it to have bloody good speakers, so they're addressing a problem.
No, the alternative argument is give us a choice: bloody good speakers or no speakers at all, and save me 300 quid.
Yeah, so something like what Pioneer used to do.
Exactly what Pioneer used to do. Yes,
add them on or not.
Give people the option. If they want the speakers, fantastic. Here you go, and there's an extra few hundred quid in it to add them on. If you don't need speakers, brilliant, then don't bother. But in terms of picture quality, which I guess is the most important aspect here, I thought it looked really good. I was very, very impressed with the X9. The video processing was superb. When you're watching Blu-rays, good Blu-rays, you'd almost think they were 4K. It was actually superb. The black levels are fantastic for an LCD TV. The local dimming was excellent. It wasn't crushing detail on the blacks. I was watching a couple of films where the photography was quite contrasty, so there were a lot of dark scenes and brightly lit scenes in the same scene. And I thought it looked absolutely stunning. It was the first time I've ever really looked at an LCD television and thought, yeah, I could go with that instead of a plasma. So that was a big shock for me. The sound quality is absolutely superb as well. So whilst you may not want those speakers, they do work. And if you want to, you can buy a wireless subwoofer to go with it. Did you get one of those as well, Mark, for the review you're doing?
I've got one right now.
Aha. And does it sound good?
Yeah, it does, in conjunction with the 8505 speakers. It does sound really convincing. Adds quite a lot. 250 quid, might be pushing it a bit. You could go out into the soundbar or a couple of active stereo speakers for that kind of money. So maybe it's a bit toppy, but yeah, it does make a difference. And of course, it's very tidy. Just a box to the side of the telly and off you go.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that also I noticed, and I'm sure you'll agree with me on this one, Mark, is out of the box, amazingly accurate image.
Yeah.
Almost had to do nothing to the grayscale to get it into perfection, and the color accuracy was spot on. So whatever Sony are doing in the factory, they're doing a damn good job, because these TVs are. So I actually calibrated another one yesterday, so I can vouch it's not just the review sample I had. This was a straight out of the shop one that I was calibrating for a friend, and it was spot on.
Okay, well, I was just going to bring that point, because Mark, your one is a retail sample, and obviously Steve, your one came from Sony. So obviously we can compare that and see that it's not a fluke on the X9.
No, it doesn't. It appears to be, like Steve said, they've got the in-factory calibrations pretty damn accurate this year. It's obviously a bit easier on an LCD than it was a plasma, because they're more stable. But yeah, I mean, it was one click on the white balance controls. I really possibly didn't need to make that, and all delta errors are under 2, so we're looking absolutely spot on. Colours tracking excellent, all the way up to 100, and then red and green are actually a little bit wide, but it doesn't make a great deal of difference with.
So it's only taken us 4 years, but finally manufacturers out of the box presets pretty damn accurate.
Yeah. Very impressive.
I mean, you could sort of moan at Sony and go, "Why don't you put a CMS in?" But in all honesty, doesn't need one. I mean, once you've done the grayscale, it's spot on. So, that was impressive. Like I said, I think I said in the review that based upon what I've seen to date, this is definitely one of the front runners for TV of the year, in my opinion. At least.
Did we look at anything else that was 4K UHD?
We did. I looked at the LG UB950, which is an IPS. Sorry?
Bit meh, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, sorry. That's why I was stalling for a second. Then I was thinking what I was going to say. No, yes, it's aspects of it are good. It's nicely designed TV. It's a well-made TV. It's got good onboard sound without resorting to massive loads of speakers and making it hugely wide, which I thought wasn't quite impressive. It obviously has got WebOS, which is very impressive. The only problem is that it's using an IPS panel, so the blacks on it were really ropey, and the local dimming wasn't helping much, unfortunately. The processing was good, the image was good, the accuracy of the image in terms of the out-of-the-box accuracy was very good. The calibration, which is just as well, because the calibration controls still aren't working properly on the LGs. They've been some firmware updates, but I just couldn't get them to do much at all. I'd move a control loads, and nothing would actually change. So that was a bit disappointing. It was a bit there were aspects of it that were good, but other aspects where they could just be better. And the thing is, it's the same things every year at the moment with LG, specifically backlight uniformity, or more to the point, banding when the camera pans. And also the local dimming. Those are the two areas that we constantly keep seeing LG falling down on.
It's no good complaining about the IPS panel, because that's the only thing LG Display make, and they're not going to buy in.
No, I'm not going to worry about that. But they could at least, they need to address. If they're going to do that, that's fine, because you obviously get the wider viewing angles, which is good for a lot of people. But I've seen IPS panels. Well, for example, their smaller screen sizes were much better. The smaller TVs, these were only full HD, granted, but I did a couple of their smaller screen size TVs, and I thought they looked really good. And local dimming worked much better on that small screens, but on the bigger screen sizes, they really struggle, I think. And the ones that I've seen to date, you've got these sort of columns of light, from the local dimming. And I think partly it's because they put their LEDs at the top and bottom of the screen rather than the left and right, like some manufacturers do. That might be one of the reasons why it's more noticeable on their TVs than other people's.
Yeah, well, it's their nanotech, isn't it? And it's
it doesn't work.
I think we've been saying for about three or 4 years now. We've been saying take the lights further back from the. Just take them back just a little bit further.
Well, it was a bit deeper. It wasn't as because a couple of years ago they were putting them right behind the panel, weren't they? And you could actually see the individual LEDs in those ones. They've made them a bit deeper. It's a bit deeper this year, but it's still too close, which is a shame, because I think if you could get the LEDs at a decent distance behind the panel and filter it in a way that you couldn't really see them, and you can minimize the banding, and with good local dimming, I think a full array backlight can work really well, even on an IPS panel. I mean, all we can hope is that LG are true to their word and start moving out OLED TVs at decent prices soon.
It's not as if LG don't listen as well, which is strange, because I think annually we have a meeting with their engineers at least once a year. Funnily enough, we haven't had one this year so far, but then everybody's a bit late at releasing their TV models this year. Normally August? We'd have finished by now. We would have had all the TVs from all the manufacturers, the main models anyway, all reviewed. A bit late this year. Everybody's been a bit late this year, so we still have that meeting. But they do listen, so hopefully LG will take on board some of the criticisms there and maybe perhaps solve the backlight issue. So we're going to wrap up TVs with 1080p TVs of note. We've had some Panasonic saying, let's go to Mark first with the ones that he's looked at.
Right, yeah, I've had a nasty little Panasonic in, A400. If anyone's listening to that, I'd avoid that like the plague. It's had one of the worst pictures I've seen in many a year. Dark and
I could just back up Mark on this one because I got the 50-inch last week and it was dreadful. Bloody awful television.
Yeah. So
sorry, Panasonic, but really, you should be illegal to sell that kind of TV.
I think you two should stop sitting on the fence, I really do.
Well, no, because I've seen other stuff that's been great from Panny, but that one was a shocker.
Yeah, that was a shocker. Tosh L74, which is probably the best TV they've managed in a number of years. Yeah, decent colours, decent blacks, decent picture processing for Toshiba, good value telly, good uniformity, direct backlight. That was all right for a Tosh. What else have I seen?
Didn't you do another Panny? Just the one?
Oh yeah, S6. Yeah, the AS650. So we'd done the AS640, which was a Curry's PC World special, and this is obviously a more general availability on this one. Pretty unspectacular, if I'm honest. It wasn't awful. Just a bit of a run-of-the-mill IPS, mediocre blacks, but good colours.
3D or 2D?
It was 3D.
I did the 600, which I think is identical to the one you did, Mark. Except it doesn't have 3D. That's the only difference.
Right? Yeah, it was 3D.
It was quite a nice TV. Yeah, it was a good, solid TV. But you know, it's like anything with Panasonic. You kind of expect more from them, and this year's been a bit of a disappointment because we're getting solid TVs. They're okay. You know, they're fine. They're perfectly acceptable. But that's not something we normally say about Panasonic, is it? Last year would have been a very different story. So
yeah, but then last year it was plasma.
I calibrated a ZT65 yesterday, and you know what? I was just sitting there in tears.
Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Right, okay. Well, this brings us neatly on to an Ask the Idiots question, which has just literally come in. So I'm going to use it because it is relevant to what we've been talking about, or what you've just been talking about, Steve, which is the death of plasma. So GP Man says, I'm thinking about a projector from an X-Buy now that plasmas are extinct. Is DLP best for black level?
No. In my experience,
that was pretty succinct.
That's the answer to the question. But if you want me to elaborate a bit, currently, and this depends what your price point is, obviously. If you can afford a JVC projector, that'll have the black level. So DILA ultimately delivers the best blacks in a projector currently. Followed by SXRD, which is Sony technology. So you're looking at maybe, if you're on a budget, the HW40, which is £1,800. It's got pretty good black levels. DLP, that's not its strong point. Black levels, they tend to be very mediocre.
I guess it depends on the environment as well, because a DLP and a Sony and a JVC, they're all going to look the same in a brightly lit room.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the advantages of the black level. So, but if you've got a bright lit room, you're not going to get excellent.
It's not going to be such an issue, is it?
It's not going to be an issue.
Then it's going to be more about brightness of the projector, and then DLPs are great because they tend to be very bright projectors, as do LCD projectors as well. Neither of those technologies are great in terms of black levels, but they can produce a very bright image. So if you're using it in a room with a lot of ambient light, that can be important. Yeah, I wouldn't buy a JVC to put in a room with white walls. You're just wasting your money. You're not going to get the full performance of that projector.
Yeah, totally. Because they're not the brightest out there either, as is the Sonys are not the brightest out there either as well. So they really need a well-designed or a nicely designed room where you can blacken it out quite a bit. If you can't do that, like Steve says, LCD or DLP, but DLP are not the best for blacks. But they do have advantages, especially 3D, Steve.
Yeah, the 3D on DLPs is fantastic, no crosstalk whatsoever. The motion handling is extremely good with DLP as well, superior to both SXRD, LCD, and DILA, all of which basically share same technology. One of the things you could do, perhaps, if you are looking if black levels are important to you, you could look at possibly buying a negative gain screen, or maybe a grey screen, something like that. That would help to a degree. But ultimately, it comes down to what your main criteria are. If you want brightness, you want good motion handling, maybe watch a lot of sport, you're going to watch it on your big screen, then a DLP could be good for that as well. If you're a big film fan and you want lots of blacks and you're going to build yourself a home cinema with darkened walls and that sort of stuff, then I would definitely consider looking at, if you can still find an X35, get an X35, but I think they've stopped making them now.
Yeah, I think they went last month. So X35 or the HW40. I've got to say, HW40, what a bargain.
Yeah, no, outrageous pricing. £1,800 is ridiculous.
Yeah, Cool. Okay, so, and we're coming up for the big projector announcements, which come towards the end of the year. Christ, this year is just flying by. So we're in August now, so expect announcements end of September, CEDIA time, which is second week in September, I think, this year. I'd have to double check that, but I'm assuming that is. It's always the week after IFA. So we should get more projector announcements soon. And Steve, you just done one which was an exclusive for us from Optoma.
Yes, Optoma, they announced it on Friday. They publicly announced it on Friday. We actually had it last week in for review. That was very nice, very kind of them. And review went up today, the day of recording, which is the Monday. And it's the HD50. And this is it's interesting because they've been a bit quiet of late, Optoma, but they've come back, and they really targeted the home cinema market. So this projector is aimed squarely at the home cinema fan, rather than saying being a projector that's kind of trying to be a jack of all trades. And it was very good. It was it's DLP, so as we've just mentioned, it has some of the weaknesses of that particular technology. So the blacks aren't great, shadow detail could be a little bit better, but by the same token, the motion handling is great. The 3D is fantastic. Although I must admit that I find Optoma's glasses. It doesn't come with any glasses, by the way, so you're free to go and buy other makes if you want to. But if you do buy Optoma's glasses, and they come in a package with 2 glasses and a little RF emitter, they're very dark lenses, and they do tend to rob it.
Terrible glasses.
They rob it of some of its impact, which is a shame. But the image accuracy was very good, particularly after calibration. Good to see a manufacturer talking about Rec 709 and pushing that as being important. Overall, it was a good projector, a nice solid projector. It's just under £1,000, so nice pricing too. In that sort of £1,000 to £2,000 price range at the moment, my choice would be the Sony HW40 you just mentioned, Phil. But if you're tight on budget and you're looking for a projector and you want a big screen action at home, then certainly the HD50 should be on your shortlist.
Right, that wraps up Vision. Let's quickly go to sound. We haven't heard any moaning from Ed yet. So Ed, on you go.
Great. Okay. Well, what you're expecting me to moan? Because actually, I've had some quite fun products.
Oh, you're never going to be
not
positive.
All of which have come up yet, but the one that was in the actual itinerary for this, so I actually remembered what I wrote and stuff. The Eclipse TDM1, and at board level, it's an AirPlay speaker, but that just undersells it. If you haven't read the review, obviously, shamelessly blow my own trumpet, I invite you to do so. There's a lot of very unusual and some entirely unique engineering that goes into it, and the result is a product which, if you use it within the boundaries of how it was designed to be used, honestly speaking, it is the best piece of desktop audio I have ever tested. And it just does things, if you sort of sit in its comfort zone, it does things that I have not heard another self-contained piece of audio equipment at vaguely sensible money do. And not only does it do that, it looks cool. It's got lots of clever features. If you spend your life sat in front of a computer and you listen to audio in near field, just listen to it, and then you'll find a way to get the money together for it. It genuinely was one of the most joyous things I've tested in a while. I would also like to extend my thanks to Eclipse to getting it to me at virtually no notice, because I've been making great play in previous podcasts that I was supposed to be testing a Focal soundbar. I'd like to take this opportunity at the same point to apologise to Focal, because I wandered out with my son to the supermarket, came back to find that some work is being done on the upstairs of my house, and the Focal soundbar was buried behind an extracted bathtub. So I've been utterly unable to get anywhere near that. I have now actually got it out from behind the bathtub. It is now running, so the review for that it will be forthcoming. But I'd like to apologise profusely. It's coming. Be patient. I'm sorry, and thank you to Eclipse for bailing me out of a hole of my own making.
I have heard some cracking excuses, Ed, but
it's not even an excuse. I just left, went off to buy some food, came back, went up to my listing room, and there was a bloody bath in it. But otherwise, a pair of the latest, well, actually the first Furutech earphones. The review for that is up, and in the next, obviously, schedule totally dependent on my learned colleagues on the podcast. You will see.
Basically, Ed, when we're desperate to put a review up, we'll love it when yours.
Well, you've got two in the pipe, and there's a very, very interesting little Bluetooth device. Very cool. and a pair of noise cancelling headphones for properly sensible money. If you were in the market for such a thing, I urge you to hold fire on that, because they were a bit of a surprise, it must be said. And unusually for me, as I say, I've got the Focal soundbar in and running, and I'm using one of the other review products this month to actually listen to and monitor this podcast at the same time. So I'm not saying I'm turning over a new leaf. I'll probably still deliver it on the 28th, but things are going all right at the moment. So yeah, go me.
Okay, an interesting little speaker package from Acoustics, Mark, that you had a look at. They looked really quite interesting. Tell us more about them.
Yeah, the BT3. So it was a little active pair, part of their lifestyle audio range, if you like. Priced at £350. You're going up against many a soundbar, if you like, here. And it outperforms virtually any in that price bracket, as probably will not surprise anyone on this podcast. It gives you a proper stereo sound field, good connectivity options. It's got aptX Bluetooth, a couple of opticals, 2 stereo line-ins. Just performed really, really well. I stuck them either side of the telly. I had them on my desktop. I had them in the bedroom for a while. Versatile little thing. Great value at £350. Yet another good Acoustics product. And they come in a choice of colours, so you come in a red and a white and a black, so you can match them to your environment.
Okay, good stuff. Who did the Paradigm?
I did the Paradigm.
Okay, tell us about that then.
Paradigm. Now this is a beast of a thing, an absolute monster of a soundbar. So I do a lot of soundbars. This is very unlike any of them generally. I think the last one that got close was a Paradigm. This thing will cost you £1,300, which is an awful lot of money in the soundbar market. It doesn't feature a subwoofer, but then it does have 4.5-inch drivers for the mid and bass duties, and 3 1-inch tweeters, which are excellent little things. All the drivers are isolated, have their own independent amplification, and it puts out quite a noise, I have to say. Sounds stunning after a bit of running. Stunning with music, stunning with movies, great for TV, good at low volumes, so good at night. You can add a sub if you like. It comes with a special wireless subwoofer receiver unit that you plug into your sub and sync with the bar. So if you do fancy a little bit more in the low end, you can always add that. Biggest caveat possibly is you're going to need 15 centimeters between, if you're not wall mounting and you're sticking it on your cabinet or your unit, you're going to need 15 centimeters clearance between the bottom of your base stand of your TV and the screen. Now, typically, a TV that in 2014 you might get 7.5, 8 centimeters, so you're going to be blotting out a load of the bottom of the screen unless you take some special measures by raising it up somehow. I mean, I had to wait until I could drag my old TV out, which had a base stand that could fit on top of a Blu-ray player that I could then put the soundbar in front of, so I could actually watch TV and listen at the same time.
Do you have an IKEA near you?
Relatively.
There's a very stout plastic box. I'll find the name of it somewhere. My GT60 lives on this £11 plastic box.
That's what I need. I need some kind of plinth or a razor.
Yeah.
For these products.
I'll find it. As I say, it's a bit of a brutalist solution, but it works.
Yeah, that will do nicely. I literally couldn't do it with some of the TVs I had, because they got these long stands, so they're just not going to fit on top of a normal piece of AV box.
It must be said, we are in a design phase where everyone is going out of their way to not work with anybody else's stuff.
Yeah, that's very true, actually.
Yeah.
In an aesthetic and design principle. So just a message to any of our manufacturing friends listening to this: stop it. We're not going all in. A couple of people will, most people won't. Don't aggravate your customer base by making it absolutely bloody impossible to mix and match equipment. It doesn't win you any friends. Just saying.
A very fair point. A very fair point. And this thing doesn't have HDMI inputs or an output, in fact. So, I mean, it's definitely a flagship product. I mean, I don't miss it personally, but some will think that's
it's a £1,300 soundbar, but it hasn't got any HDMI inputs.
No HDMI inputs.
Seems a bit
okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's probably a debate for another time, but often that's more trouble. That's more trouble than it's worth. HDMI, CSC, or ARC, because you can have nightmares.
Okay, we need to wrap up on the hardware side of things. So the last speakers to look at were the Silver 8s from Monitor Audio. Steve looked at these.
I did. I believe Ed, you looked at the Silver.
I looked at the whole
6.
package. Yes.
Yeah, but did they have floor stands in the
It
Silver
did.
6?
Yes, the 6.
Which are what 2.5-way configuration, aren't they?
Yeah, an absolutely classic monitor audio thing, and it's more unusual. The 8. It's more recent that they've been doing more drivers in that regard. So I read your review with some interest, and I did read it and stuff.
Makes a change.
Yeah. Well, I love them. They sounded great. There's a 3-way design. They're beautifully made. They've gone for a kind of seamless look to that. There's no obvious screws or anything like that, and the grills are attached by magnets. I had the white lacquered finish, which I've got to say was also very attractive. The lacquer finish.
I can't get excited about white speakers. They do a very.
Well, no,
nice
I don't like white. I'd never pick white speakers. I'd have gone for black lacquered speakers personally. But it was a beautiful finish, no question about it. There's a lot of loving care has gone into these speakers. Nice big plinth at the bottom, adjustable spikes if you want to use those. 4 speaker terminals at the back, right at the bottom.
Hang on a second. You had the silver. I'm trying to wonder if I had I can't remember if I did. Did I do a silver pack or did I do a bronze?
Yeah, you did
pack?
silver 6. You did the silver 6.
Oh, okay. Yes, you're right. I did. I get confused these days because they've started using ribbons, and that confuses me as well.
No ribbon in this one.
No. You're right.
Gold dome tweeter actually, but it sounded they sounded lovely. Were a nice open sound, warm, plenty of detail, clarity, all things you want from a speaker really. I was mightily impressed, and I don't often get big floor stands in review, which is probably just as well, really, because they are a bit on the heavy side. But it was thoroughly enjoyable listening to those while they were in review. It was great.
Can I ask a question which I don't think was in your review because it wound me up? The latest monitor audio styling thing, the badge around the tweeter surround is offset. And I don't regard myself as being someone afflicted by obsessive compulsive disorder, but it's not right. It should be censored. It's asymmetrical and it's wrong. And it's not only is it asymmetrical, it's not matched on the other side by it being symmetrically offset to the other way. And it's just it infuriated me unnaturally. And I couldn't easily explain to you why, because most of these things don't, asymmetric products haven't got to me in the past. But the rest of the speaker is so perfectly symmetrical to then whack the brand at 11 o'clock.
It's a jaunty angle.
It's just really weird and somewhat unsettling. And I'm going off to scrub my hands until they bleed.
You could just put the grill over it.
I could. And actually, as my son gets ever more mobile, grills are looking increasingly good. But it was really weird. It got to me on the package.
I didn't notice until you just pointed it out. I'm looking at the photograph I took now, and I can say, oh yeah, it is, isn't it?
Now, are you sure that's the badge and not just Steve's photography skills?
No.
It is.
Mr. Withers is Mr. Withers. Hey, I'm not going to criticise him on photography skills. It's certainly no different to my own ham-fisted efforts. But no, the badge is offset. And it's really weird, and I don't know. It just tweaked at my hitherto unknown levels of obsession.
When Ed refers to the badge, what he means is they've written monitor audio along the edge of the tweeter, but it's like at the 11 o'clock position
instead of the 12 o'clock, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Exactly.
How sad. Right. Okay.
Yeah, and I thought I had obsessive compulsive disorder, but apparently I'm nowhere near as bad as Ed.
Yeah, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to turn my lights on and off to 72 times. I'll be back in a moment.
Open and close the door.
Can't sleep. Clowns will eat me.
So we move on to games news, and we haven't heard these dulcet tones yet, but Mark is here, and EA Access subscription service. So Mark, tell us about this and tell us about the coverage on the site.
Yep, well, James has popped up an article about this, giving his own particular opinion about it. Basically, EA have launched this subscription service. Well, it's currently in a closed beta and no set launch date yet, just the vague summer, which can cover a lot of ground. What they're going to do, $3.99 a month or £19.99 a year, and that will offer you access to a vault of EA games. Currently, it looks like it'll be Battlefield 4 and the various EA Sports titles, FIFA 14, NFL 2025, and Peggle 2, with the promise that there will be more to be added, as well as things like 10% off most EA games and downloadable content, and the prospect in the future of 5 days early access to new games. So the big one will be Dragon Age, Inquisition, and various, obviously, the latest sports offerings. It's interesting in the fact that it's exclusive to the Xbox One, and it's slowly come out that in fact Sony declined the service because they deemed it as not good value. There seems
well, that's cutting, isn't it?
Yeah, from them.
Well, it is. It seems very much like Sony are kind of still wearing the kind of white hat yeah, we saved games with the PlayStation 4. Yeah, obviously, if you were cynical, you would say that they've got PlayStation Plus subscriptions up more than 200% since the PlayStation 4 launched. The fact that some people looked at the cost of renting with the game streaming service of PlayStation Now, and so now they're looking into whether they can add a subscription charge to that as well, which, again, even more cynical people would say will make the rental charge prohibitive and people will, in fact, want to pay for a subscription. But it's interesting in that it kind of speaks of the fragmentation of content that we've seen with kind of streaming boxes for TV shows and the like, and in a way you can see where Sony are coming from with not wanting someone to the casual market buy a new box and then suddenly find there are 3 different services that you need to sign up to get just access to the games that you want. Some people are obviously seeing this EA access as great value for money. If you are just interested in getting perhaps last year's versions of the latest games, and then, well, if you've just got, say, like me, I pick up FIFA once every few years, well, I can trade in the copy I've got, spend the £20, and then, I've got access to various games that otherwise I wouldn't have. However, things like 10% off, I don't see exactly how that's incentivizing things, because pretty much in the first week of sales, if you shop around, you can always make that yourself. Unless it's kind of 25%, 30% off, that you can probably shop around and certainly beat what the downloadable price is. Because if that's 10% off, what they're charging to start with, which will be £55, just wandering into a local, massive branch of a supermarket, you can beat that, and then an extra £5 on top probably. So yeah, it's one of those services that, should we say, as we see exactly how much more will be added, then you'll know where the real value is. But for people just wanting to kind of dip their toe in, then for £20, then it probably makes sense.
If you don't own any of those games already, if you're new to gaming or something like that, it could be great value. I'm guessing a lot of people there will have already played those games, and therefore it may not look like such good value.
Well, that's the thing. Is who's it for? Is it for if you're a bit of a casual, then £20 a year you might not want to justify. If you love buying the latest version of EA games, then really once you've got that 10% off, say the latest version of FIFA, having access to last year's version is, well, pointless. Who's going to want that last year's version of all the different games? And they're not going to be keeping them. If you end up with 4 different versions of FIFA in the vault, who's going to the one that's 4 years old?
Yeah.
No one's going to bother with that. So really, you've got a new game in each of those series every year. And, maybe if they do come out with something like the HD versions of the Mass Effect trilogy, which has been touted for a long time, if that came out, then, yeah, obviously that would make sense, and that might even drive people towards it. But beyond that, I shall sit on the fence for now, I think.
And what was James's points in his article?
James's points, really, he wondered whether, in fact, he was going to be getting a lot more for his money, realised that he wasn't, and then basically, yeah.
Didn't do it.
No, well, this is the thing. For people, I think there are a lot of people out there who will see great value for it if, say, they're not already tied into things like the PlayStation Plus Instant Game Collection has offered just such a ridiculous amount of value for money that everything else kind of seems a bit stingy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mark, sorry, can I ask a question about that? Because I've got a PS4 now, and I was thinking of, I haven't tried out the 3-month free trial. Is it a month or months free trial of the PlayStation Plus? But what do you actually get as part of PlayStation Plus then?
Well, you get obviously access to be able to play multiplayer games. On the PS4, on the PS3 and Vita, you don't need PlayStation Plus for that, but you get access to the Instant Game Collection, which is a series of games that you can download each month for all the Sony consoles, and they just seem to be offering a ridiculous amount. Particularly if you own kind of several Sony consoles, then it makes a huge amount of sense.
I've been reading your reviews with the guy. I think you've done quite a few of them, of those instant games, and they've all sounded like quite fun, especially for free. What's the monthly subscription for PlayStation Plus? PlayStation Plus.
I don't know what it is per month, but I know per year it's I think it's $39.99. But you know, you shop around.
$4.99 a month, I think it is.
Is it? Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Well,
so. It was when I was subscribing.
That does sound like quite a good deal, actually.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Right, so that kind of wraps up the games news, but we have Games Podcast coming up next week. I understand you guys recorded early, or did that fall through?
That fell through, predictably.
So what, I mean, obviously you're going to talk about this in a little bit more depth, aren't you, EA Access. What else do you think is going to be on the agenda then?
Destiny beta. That's been probably one of the kind of big topics in the past month. I covered that for the site. There's a little article up there now. There's obviously the open beta for PlayStation Now. We've seen a little bit more of pricing structure and that little teaser that they might be implementing a subscription service for that. And just generally what games we've been playing. But it is the summer games drought, so we're scrabbling for content.
Well, I mean, talking about the summer drought, we've had our holiday. Did anything of note go up over the holiday period that people might have missed on the front page?
Well, everything is pretty much there on the front page. Steve did a good little article about pre-orders. James looked at an interesting title, Gods Will Be Watching, as well, for a first look on Steam. Beyond that, smaller downloadable titles, like Valiant Hearts and The Swapper I looked at. But yeah, it's been a fairly slow month, but we are coming up to Gamescom, and James and Manny should hopefully be in Germany in a fortnight, or August 14th to the 17th, and so hopefully they should have some good stuff for us then.
Okay, cool. So that's a Games Podcast coming up next week, so keep your eyes open for that one. It'll be up soon. Right, let's move on. We've got movie news coming next. So let's start with movie news and what's at the cinema, Steve.
Perhaps I'll just start by saying, mentioning a couple of films that have been out since we did the last podcast, because obviously July's been a busy month for film releases. There's been some quite good movies out over that period, and an absolute stinker. On the good side, I would strongly recommend, if you haven't seen it yet, you go and see Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I thought that was an excellent movie. Really bucked the trend of what I expected, a bit like the one that came before it, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which was, hang on, I'm throwing around, isn't it? It's Rise of the Planet of the Apes that came out first, then Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Rise was a surprise because it was really good and I wasn't expecting that. And then the sequel, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, although the titles should have been the other way around in my opinion, is sort of takes place after the events of the first film, and the apes have got their own society developing, and they spend a lot of time within ape society when they're talking using sign language and the subtitles. Now, it's surprising for a summer blockbuster to be as brave as that. If anything, it's very ape heavy, and there's less action involving the humans, which again surprised me. I think Kaz's review, he wished there'd been more apes and less humans, but I think it's difficult to make a film with no human characters in it. I think people would find difficulty empathizing or even, getting involved in the plot without there being some human characters in there. But
so sorry, can I just ask, what is the law here? I'm talking LORE, obviously, not monkey law.
That ape shall not kill ape. Everyone knows that.
Oh yeah, good point actually. But how is it? Because I didn't see the first one, so basically, how do we come about to the point of?
Oh well, in the first one, just a
recap.
The reason the first one worked so well, I think, is because it set up a premise of getting you to the point where the original Planet of the Apes film, you can see how you could have led to that, because they have them trying to develop a cure for Alzheimer's, which they're testing on apes, and it causes the apes to increase in intelligence. And then one ape is born of a mother who's been given this drug, and the ape's called Caesar, and he's very intelligent and he can even speak. And he's the one that sort of leads the ape revolt. And then at the same time, the virus that they were creating, the drug that they've been creating mutates into a virus, which actually kills most of the human population of the planet, which is where this film starts. So Dawn starts with most people dead, like only I think 1% of the population left, and the apes are now more evolved and more intelligent and living in societies of their own and communicating through sign language. And later on in the film, they obviously bottled it a bit because they thought can't do the whole film with subtitles. So then the apes start talking later, which kind of annoyed me a little bit because Caesar was born from a mother who'd been given the drug, and therefore you can assume his vocal cords are mutated, whereas apes don't have vocal cords, therefore they could never speak. Anyway, that's a minor point.
Yeah, but weren't they dishing out the drugs willy-nilly?
No, the drugs were making them intelligent, but I always got the impression that Caesar was different because he was born from a mother who'd already been given the drug.
He might also be communicating with other apes that are born from apes that have been given the drug.
Well, no, because he's the one that released all the other apes and then gave them the drug to make them more intelligent. So I'm not sure. Well, certainly in the first film, there's no indication that there's any other ape like Caesar. But I think we're digressing.
Yep. The other thing in the first movie was the launch of the spacecraft.
Yes, they briefly mentioned, don't they, in the background?
Yeah.
And so you could, I mean, theoretically, and Kaz made this point in his article, his review, you could theoretically have the astronauts not necessarily going thousands of years into the future, but returning to Earth within 10 years or 20 years of the events to find, mankind effectively wiped out and the apes in control. So it would set up for a sort of a reworked version of the original Planet of the Apes movie, but without the aspect of being a suspended animation for thousands of years and then returning to Earth. Possible. I thought it was a great movie. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I recommend it highly if you haven't seen it yet. In terms of films I wouldn't recommend you go and see, Transformers Age of Extinction was as bad as you'd expect it to be, given the other ones are all pretty awful. But it's just reached a point now. It's just made $1 billion last week, which is just sickening. But it was what really was really depressing about it was how it pandered to a Chinese audience. I mean, it was just borderline propaganda at times. And there's a whole sequence. I'm sorry I have to say this, but the last third of the film takes place in Hong Kong. And
not Hong Kong.
As much as I enjoyed watching Hong Kong get smashed to bits by giant robots, I mean, there were whole sequences in it where it's just pure propaganda, which was kind of annoying. It's rubbish. It's absolute cobblers. It doesn't make any lick of sense, and you don't give a monkeys about anyone in the film. It's just typical Michael Bay. It's sexist. This whole sequence where they're joking about statutory rape laws, which I thought was pretty unpleasant. It was just rubbish. Unfortunately, me telling everyone not to go and see it has made no difference whatsoever, obviously, because the planet has. And they've already greenlit another one, so let's let one more bloody awful Transformers film at least coming, because, I mean, as long as they keep making $1 billion, they'll keep churning them out.
Right, I think you need to get on to what people should be going to see this week.
I went to go and see this weekend is Guardians of the Galaxy, which I have been looking forward to for some time now, since I saw the first trailer. I knew nothing about this, by the way. I'm not a big comic reader. I don't know much about the Marvelians apart from Spider-Man, basically. I knew Spider-Man was. I didn't even know the X-Men were until they made those films. I really wasn't familiar with I knew about the Hulk, I suppose, and Thor. I've read a bit of Thor in the past. But Iron Man was relatively new to me. So the Guardians of the Galaxy, I've never heard of them. But I saw the trailer, the first teaser trailer. I thought this looked really good fun, and it is really, really good fun. It's well written. It's very witty. The cast is likable. The characters are nice and fun, and the villain's good. The effects are superb. It's kind of a bit like Star Wars would have been, 40 years ago. It was just a really enjoyable romp. And sometimes that's all you want to do at the cinema, just sit back and be entertained, and it does thoroughly. And it's got a really funny and really surprising cameo right at the very end of the film. I'm not going to say any more than that, but stay through the end credits to the very end because it is quite good. James Gunn directed it and co-wrote it as well. I got a sneaking suspicion because I believe Joss Whedon is kind of overlord now of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he may have had a hand in it too because it's got a few moments in it that are very Whedon-esque. Chris Pratt plays a guy called Peter Quill, who's a human. He likes to call himself Star-Lord, but nobody else does. And he's the main character, but there's also the rest of the Guardians. One is an animated raccoon who can speak, voiced by Bradley Cooper, that is really good. There's a sort of a tree, a humanoid tree called Groot, who only ever says, "I am Groot." Voiced by Vin Diesel. There's Dave Bautista, who plays this Dax the Destroyer, who comes from a planet where people take what you say literally. So there's lots of really good jokes about him just misunderstanding what people are saying all the time. And there's also Zoe Saldana, who plays... Who does she play? I remember that character's name now. Gamora, that's it, Gamora. And those are the 5 Guardians of the Galaxy. And there's also Karen Gillan in it from Doctor Who plays one of the villains, and she's very good in it too, actually. And yeah, it was just really good fun. Really, really enjoyed it, and I'd recommend it highly to anyone who hasn't seen it yet. Although it did very well over the weekend, both here and in the US, which is good news. I'd rather see people saw this than something like Transformers. I think Marvel has been doing a fantastic job with their movies over the last since 2008.
Making Disney lots of money.
Making Disney an obscene amount of money, yes. And it's all set up now for next May when Avengers Age of Ultron opens. I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to see what Joss Whedon does next.
Okay, let's move on to Blu-rays that were released while we were away on our holidays. Now, Noah, Need for Speed, the Lego Movie, Rio 2, Labor Day, and The Double. I actually watched Noah, Need for Speed, and the Lego Movie on the plane.
And I bet you're going to say Lego Movie.
By miles. By absolute miles. Need for Speed, completely ruined by the lack of respect shown to other human beings. It's okay to drive at 150 miles an hour on public roads. Because of that concept of it, I know they were trying to go for the, like, the Smokey and the Bandit type feeling, but it didn't work for me. And the fact that they weren't very nice characters, to be honest.
I agree. I mean, the stunts are amazing.
Yeah.
But you don't like the people in it, and you're just thinking that is so incredibly dangerous. I don't want to sound like an old man here, but what does he get, like 4 years in prison? Bollocks, he'd have got like 50 years, wouldn't he, for the amount of damage, destruction, and nearly killing so many people on the way across the states. It was just ludicrous.
Yeah, I mean, Smoking the Bandit was good fun. It's
a comedy.
It was well, this was trying to feed on that, but trying to up the ante and make it look incredibly dangerous and all that. And in the end, they just looked like stupid, reckless, and they ended up all being in prison, basically. And good, so they should be. And very, very shallow movie in terms of character development and so on. Noah absolutely hated it. I just thought it was absolute tosh, and not because it's based on religious writings and all the rest of it. It was just tosh. Absolutely.
It was really boring, wasn't it? And it was such a miserable place.
Oh, and what's her face?
Don't want to go to Iceland in a hurry.
What's her face? Emma Watson just cannot act.
Oh,
she cannot act. So no, and I kept expecting to get a Bet 365 roundup at some point as well. No.
Oh yeah, Ray Winston. Yeah, he is really turning into a one-trick pony, isn't he? Just like, Ray, give it up, mate. I mean, you were great when you played Carlin back in Scum in '79 or whatever it was.
I can see what they were trying to do with it, and it takes a lot to make an epic movie nowadays, and it takes a lot to get an audience for epic movies. I mean, if you think back to like Ben-Hur and Cleopatra and all that kind of thing, the big epic movie, I could see what they were trying to do with it, but Lego Movie's awesome. Everything's awesome.
The Lego Movie is, I mean, seriously, if you haven't seen Lego Movie yet, I highly recommend you buy it.
The other one I saw, really, which is not on the list here, but I would recommend, was Saving Mr. Banks. I wasn't expecting the movie that I got, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, clearly you didn't listen to my review then.
No, I never listened to your
review.
We
never listened to you with us.
I said it was a great film.
I've been thoroughly enjoying looking at all sorts of used cars whilst you've been doing this. It's been very rewarding, but I haven't actually been listening to you. Sorry.
At least you're honest. Is Lego in 3D in the UK, Steve? Is it a 3D Blu-ray?
Yeah, I've got it. Well, actually, no,
I thought you got the US import.
Yeah, I did get the US import. You're right.
Just checking it is in the UK before I go out.
I'm pretty sure it's available 3D in the UK as well. Cool. Yeah. I mean, Rio 2 actually arrived today for me. I haven't seen it yet.
Don't bother with that, mate. It's rubbish.
Is it rubbish? Because I liked Rio. I thought that was all right.
Yeah, Rio was good, but we went to the cinema with the kids to see this, and they were bored.
That's not a good
it's
sign.
Exciting. I'm going to the cinema next week.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Got it all plumbed in with childcare and everything. It's the third Expendables film. I've seen the other two, so in for a penny, in for a pound.
There's me thinking you were going to go and see something good there.
No.
Just a record, by the way. I have not yet gone to see Hercules starring The Rock. So.
Oh, it's getting panned something rotten.
Yeah, you must have blue balls. Sorry.
It looked rubbish in the trailer.
Are you just waiting until the cinemas are empty before you go in your long mark?
I'll get it on Blu-ray film. Do what I like in privacy of my own home. I also got The Double. That arrived today. That's Richard Adewaye's second film after he did Submarine a few years ago, which I really enjoyed. Trailer for this looks very interesting. I might watch this after we finish the podcast, actually, because it does look like an interesting movie with Jesse Eisenberg and Mia Wasikowska. Where a guy gets haunted by his double, effectively. But that one looked interesting. I haven't seen it yet.
It was really weird, just as an aside for that. Whilst I was on holidays, driving back from Lake Windermere to the
haunted by yourself, were you, Ed?
I wasn't, but there was a Radio 4 program talking about the double with Richard Ayoade being interviewed, and it was entirely surreal because obviously he was talking about his film and he was being entirely serious for 25 minutes. And it's one of those things where you're just waiting for him to just say something deeply surreal, or lapse into one of his characters or whatever. And
because his delivery's deadpan.
And yes, but such a distinctive voice as well. And you forget how face meltingly clever he actually is as well. But he was talking about the mechanics of, whilst there's a school of thought that says that you have a completely different actor and you simply CGI the other person's face onto it. He was saying that you just don't get the commonality of physicality, and that's a direct quote from him, as well as sounding hella cool. You just don't get it. So he was saying you go back to the old techniques of jump cutting and overlaying and the like. And it was a genuinely interesting interview, and I almost feel compelled to watch it as well. I say almost. We'll see what happens. If it turns up on Sky Arts or Sky Movies or something like that, I'll see if it's there.
Well,
I'll watch it.
I'll watch it, Ed, and let you know what I think. You'll obviously ignore me, but
yeah, I will. I mean,
we're too busy looking at used cars.
I'm looking at Auto Trader at the time. All bets are off. But yeah, we'll see how we go.
Well, I mean, like I said, he did Submarine, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. I couldn't believe the guy from the IT crowd had directed that. So my hopes are relatively high on this one. And the other film's coming out this week is Labour Day. I think Kaz is currently doing the review for that. I didn't get to see it at the cinema. It was a bit of one of those sort of sloppy romantic dramas that didn't really appeal.
No, I need to correct that. It's not very soppy at all. And Milton Keynes Cinema made the slightly poor judgment call of showing it as their Cine Babies presentation, which, considering it features abortion, stillbirth, and a baby drowning, was not the best decision that they've ever made. They had to close their Twitter account for a week. It just degenerated into just a wall of abuse. It's like, what were you thinking?
Did your wife go and see it?
Yes, with my son.
Oh, we need to hire their PR department.
It was not the best decision they've ever made. It must be said.
Okay. Well, as I said, I hadn't seen it, and now I'm glad I haven't seen it.
It's not a laugh a minute, I'll tell you that.
No, right. I think that would a wide berth.
Right, okay, so let's quickly move on and look at what's coming up next week, Steve, in terms of Blu-rays.
Yeah,
Raid 2,
the Raid 2 out next week. Again, Casablanca on the review for that right now. I have not seen it yet. I've got the disc. I've had it for a few weeks, actually. I haven't got around to seeing it. I haven't had time, unfortunately. But I did thoroughly enjoy the Raid. Which, if anyone hasn't seen, is worth checking out. It's basically got the same plot as Dread, where a bunch of cops have to fight their way up a building full of drug dealers and villains. Very exciting, amazing fight sequences in it. This is got the same lead actor in it, but it's on a much broader scale. I mean, now it's across the whole city, and it's got kind of a crime epic. It looks, in the stuff I've seen in the trailers and the scenes that I have seen, it looks superb. I'm quite looking forward to watching that at some point, maybe tomorrow night. Divergent, don't bother with it. It's cobblers. Basically, it's just somebody who probably watched the Hunger Games and then thought, actually, if you want to have a laugh, go to Honest Trailers, screenjunkies.com. Check out the Honest trailer for Divergent. It's bang on the money. It's really, really funny. In fact, all the Honest trailers are really funny. I can't recommend them high enough. I know you saw a couple, didn't you, Phil?
Yeah, I've got to say the Lion King is probably the most superb spoof I've ever seen.
Yeah, they're all really, really good. They're Honest trailers, they're called. Just go into YouTube, put in Honest Trailers Screen Junkies. They are so funny, and they are spot on sometimes.
Not office friendly, though, I will point out.
No, but they're one for Divergent. It hits the nail on the head. Basically, a girl's watched the Hunger Games, read the Hunger Games, and thought, yeah, I can do that too. Got out a thesaurus. Bob's your uncle. There's the story. It's cobblers. Calvary, I have not seen, but apparently it is very good, and so I might check that out at some point if I get a chance. Muppets Most Wanted, I also haven't seen because it looked like it was shit. And even though the first Muppets movie, the one they did a couple of years ago, was supposed to be quite good with Jason Segel, this was with Ricky Gervais, and it looked like absolute cobblers. So
it is. I've seen that.
Well, thank you, Mark. Did the kids hate that one too?
Kids hated that one as well. And then they weren't so disappointed by that one, but I was extremely disappointed. The whole premise for the story is that Kermit is mixed up with this Russian master criminal frog, who has a mole. And then clearly Kermit hasn't got a mole, and no one notices that the whole way through the movie that Kermit's got this mole on. It's absolutely ludicrous, and it lost me within 5 minutes. But hey, the kids didn't mind it, so if you've got kids, they might stomach it.
That was the moment that it lost you.
Yeah, it lost me before I got there, but someone's got to take them. But yeah, it was just the whole premise for the story is that this imposter, this Russian master criminal frog,
Mark.
Yeah.
You realise Kermit's not real, don't you?
Yeah, but if you've got to do.
It's just a bloke's hand in a sock.
Yeah, well, exactly. But he doesn't have a mole, does he? A great big mole on his chin. And he spends time with all these Muppets, day in, day out, and they don't reckon they haven't spotted it.
It's a Muppet movie. You're going into this expecting a little bit too much, aren't you?
Yeah, maybe.
I think the suspension of disbelief is pretty much assumed with a Muppets movie.
Well, I'll tell you what, I challenge you to watch it and not be annoyed.
I'll tell you what looks weird is how they try to do the full frame shots now with the legs in as well. It just doesn't look right.
That's silly. Very
There is literally no sum of money lower than 4 figures that you could compel me to watch that film. Just thinking about it, I was just trying to work out how much would I have to be paid, and it's got to be £1,000.
Is this an aversion to the film or Muppets in general?
I loathe the Muppets. I mean, I just
Muppets
no,
are
I'm
funny.
sorry.
No,
Muppets Christmas Carol.
No,
That's
they're
good.
not. They're about as funny as Drowning. Let's be very clear about this. It's one of
Drowning
those
can
things
be
where
funny.
Let's be very clear that this is your opinion. Ed.
Old sod. You really are.
Yeah. Old before his time.
So,
I think it's one of those things where other people have said, "Oh, I think the Muppets are hilarious," because someone else has gone, "Oh, I think the Muppets are hilarious." It's one of those things where if you actually sat people down in isolation,
so now we all can't think for ourselves. Is that what you're saying?
yes, you're all wrong.
Indoctrinated by Muppets.
Yes, absolutely.
Muppets Treasure Island's quite good as well.
Yeah, I enjoy Treasure Island.
I never bothered finishing the book, to be honest, because I saw the end of that.
yeah, it does it better than the book, to be fair.
Yeah. I don't know if it differs, but that did me.
Not much.
Mark, is Black Sails a sort of prequel to Treasure Island?
Yes, that's exactly what it says. Yeah, set about 10, 15 years prior. Really
Is
good.
there nudity in it?
Not as much as you'd want. No, there's loads. Yeah, there's plenty. Yeah, don't worry. You can get a Kleenex.
Busty
Kleenex.
wenches and coming out.
Yeah. It's just up your street. It's blood, sex, and violence
Excellent.
in
But
costume.
no rock.
No, he would have been good at
That's
it.
all right.
There's some really bad acting, so he would have fitted right in.
There's nothing wrong with the Rock's acting.
No, sorry, I'm being unkind.
That's it then, Phil, for the Blu-rays next week.
Thank God for that. Right, we are running really quite short in time, but the
Really got one thing to go.
the big news story. Well, we were going to do the best and worst films of the summer,
No,
but
I kind of did that at the beginning. I realised I'd only seen 2
Yeah.
films in the summer.
Okay, so we're going to skip over that, and we're going to go to the original Star Wars Trilogy remastered in 4K. This news broke over the last few weeks. Something you picked up on Twitter. Was it Twitter or Facebook that you saw the post on and elaborate?
It was on. I'll give it credit where credit's due. It was on the digitalbits.com.
All right,
They
Bill's-
picked up on it
Bill's
first,
site, yeah.
and I read it on that.
What's
So-
his name again? Is it Bill Hunt?
It's Bill Hunt. Yeah, Bill
Yeah.
Hunt picked up on it,
Good
and
site.
very good site. I recommend it highly if you're into Blu-rays. Bill's done some great work over the years championing disc-based entertainment. So from our perspective, the kind of things we like. And he picked up on a site, the company that had done a brand new 4K remaster of or transfer of the original Star Wars trilogy. So that's good news. The big question, of course, is
What's original?
which version?
Yeah. Is it the original or the original special edition?
Well, first of all, to do a new 4K master, they had to go back to the camera negative, right? Because the stuff they were doing.
Oh,
back
would this be the negative that Mr. Lucas says does not exist?
It doesn't exist. Yeah, exactly. There's no other way they could have done it. So that alone means that there has to have been something going on here. And I'm pretty sure any effects they did for the special editions, whichever ones you want to pick, the ones from 97, the ones from 2004, whatever, or the ones from 2 years ago, or whenever it was 3 years ago with the Blu-ray release, there's no way those effects were done at 4K resolution. So you got to start thinking. I would be very surprised if they didn't at least restore the original films.
I've got to say,
on 35mm.
If Disney want to really cash in on their $4 billion or whatever it was they paid for Lucasfilm, they would be absolute muppets if they did not release the original Star Wars trilogy on Blu-ray or in 4K. They would be absolute muppets if they didn't do it, because it's a cash cow. People will go and pay a lot of money for it.
The reason they've done this new 4K master is for a re-release next year in the run-up to the release of Star Wars Episode 7
at the cinema during the summer. Yeah, totally. And
absolutely. I mean, why not? I mean, I'll be first in line, wouldn't you?
Well, you'll be behind me.
But yeah, and I also think that Disney, certainly my experience with Disney in terms of restoration and looking after their back catalogue, they are very, very good at it. They offer. I mean, for example, recently I just watched Beauty and the Beast on Blu-ray. Now, on that disc, there is the original theatrical release, a special edition version they did where they added an extra song in, and also the work print version that they released before the film actually came out, which actually I think won at Cannes or something. I think it did really well. But they are very good at giving you different versions, but they do still retain the original version of the film, and they restore their stuff beautifully and at the highest resolution possible. So I can't imagine they're going to suddenly just let the camera negative to the original Star Wars decay to the point where
that doesn't exist.
That's just not going to happen. And if it did happen, that would be someone should go to jail, because that's destroying a piece of history.
Well, actually, it is in the American
exactly. It's all printed
Hall of Fame, so it has to exist in its original format to be in that. So, I just I'm mildly hopeful we might get something. Okay, I'm going to go to our resident film expert here. We're going to ignore you, Steve, for just a minute and go to everybody else that's on this podcast, because I don't think they'll love Star Wars as much as me and you, and let's get some honest opinions. Mr. Botwright, what do you think?
Yeah, I would like it very much if they went back and removed all the gubbins that was added. I think there was certainly something missing as soon as they started kind of, I don't know, the idea was good to try and add in some kind of ambience and that kind of thing, extra activity, but I think they lost obviously something that was particularly of the period, with the kind of desolate backdrops. I preferred that. I prefer my kind of, a bit like with 70s westerns and everything, I prefer there to be, less is more. Yeah.
You don't mind the matte painting because you're already wrapped up in the story.
Exactly. And also I found kind of, you could kind of more believe that places like Tatooine or somewhere were kind of almost lawless outposts or something, like last outpost of the Roman Empire or something, just guarded by a couple of stormtroopers. Whereas as soon as they start adding in giant beasts in the background and kind of a market or something, it just feels a bit odd.
Yeah, totally. And picking up on that point as well about adding stuff in, have you? I forget the guy's name. The guy that did, he actually did all the special effects, redid all the special effects.
ADWAM.
Is it ADWAM? And I'm not for tinkering with things, but if Lucas was going to do it, he should have done it the way that this guy did it, because it just looks so good when it's done.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I don't mind them doing if they want to do a special edition or a special edition or whatever, the ultimate edition, final edition. I don't care if they do that. They will, fine. I'll watch that as well. But just give me the original version as an option. Just don't tell me I can't see that too.
Well, I mean, to me, it just proved that he hadn't a clue when it came to storytelling, or he certainly lost his way. He maybe did at the time when he made it, but he certainly lost his way, because the fact that Han shoots first, I know it gets raised all the time, but the fact that he does that in cold blood sets him up as the rascal that he is. It sets his whole character up.
Exactly. So when he leaves, you think, you don't know.
Well, that's it. When he leaves, you think he's just been a bastard and he's gone. He's not coming back. Yeah. So when he does come back, Anyway, Mr. Selly.
Well, I'd be interested enough to see it. I don't know. It's not actually. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I love the original 3 films a great deal. I don't actually revisit watching them that often, if I'm honest. I'd be inclined to have another look. I'm concerned on a cynical and mercenary level that it would affect the value of the Laserdisc trilogy
edition,
I've got. You know, I don't want them. I don't want them.
You don't want to rub in that I've said umpteen times that that's my biggest regret was ever selling that set. But yeah. I
haven't sold mine.
Yeah, I know. Just keep rubbing it in.
Well, what can I say? But no, who knows? It may be rendered. It may be about to turn them into placemats. But we'll see how we go. But yeah, I you know, a respectful treatment of the originals would be lovely. I don't have a great deal of faith that they won't resist the temptation to do something completely superfluous and pointless, but you know, we'll see what comes of it.
Like I said, I think if they listen to the community, and as Steve points out, Disney do tend to listen to their community of fans. I think they will, because they know they're going to make a bucket load if they release the original. Mr. Hodgkinson, what do you think?
I'm a bit like Ed, actually. Despite it being probably the most important movie franchise of my childhood, and I watched them dozens of times. I can't remember the last time I watched the Star Wars.
No, I can't either.
Of the first three.
I think I was so put off with the prequels.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. I don't think I've watched them since my teens. Despite it being probably, if someone asked me what my favourite movie of all time was, I would probably say Star Wars, which is a bit strange. It probably isn't my favourite movie. I just think it is. But yeah, I would certainly be interested if they can do a good job of it. And I'll wait for reviews. I'll wait for you guys to spend your money first before I put my money down on it. But if it looks good, then I'm in. I'll definitely be in. It might just the time to revisit now. Maybe I'm ready. It
wasn't my teens. I watched it on Blu-ray, but the original trilogy's on Blu-ray, and I still love Empire. I still watch snippets of that now and again when I've got a bit. Well, I'm assuming I've got a bit of kit in for review, but that's been few and far between over the last 12 months or so. But never mind. Okay, so do we want them in 4K? Yes, we do. Do we want the original trilogy? Of course we do. I think we would pay £60, which we had to pay last time.
Well, I'll tell you, if you want to see how obsessive Star Wars fans can get, somebody very kindly put a link in the thread to that particular piece I did, a link to a YouTube trailer for the despecialized version of Star Wars, and the lengths that this guy has gone to take the special edition Blu-ray and take it back to the way it was in 1977 is absolutely staggering. It's worth watching it just to see the unbelievable levels of obsession that people can go to.
Right.
So that's
okay, I think that wraps everything up for this week. We have gone over time as normal, and we will be back again next week. So don't forget your Ask the Idiots questions. Get them in on Twitter at AVForums, and we'll get answering them next week. So all I need to do now is thank Steve Withers.
That's much too vulgar a display of power, Karis.
Mark Hodgkinson.
The Kurd stood waiting like an ancient debt.
Mark Botwright.
Remember that. Do not listen.
And Ed Selly.
If certain British doctors had never asked, what is this fungus, we wouldn't have penicillin, correct?
Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Bookmark avforums.com for the latest new reviews and news and video. This is written down. You think I'd know it by now. And plus, also, why not leave us a rating on iTunes if you enjoyed the show? We've been on our holidays. I've got an excuse. I'm Phil Hinton. Thanks very much for listening. And we'll see you again next Wednesday.